Are you listening to my answer? You see, you're busy right now, right? Suddenly you're busy.
Listen, I heard exactly what you had to say, and I agree. Islamophobic.
But you want to debate me right now?
Maybe after. Maybe after.
You want to debate me? Then you need to listen to me until I finish.
Please.
Sit down. Sit down. Sit down. Sit down and listen. Okay.
One audience member takes the floor mic. He came with a prepared speech. He accuses Yousef of Islamophobia. He invokes Samuel Huntington and the Clash of Civilizations. He name-drops the writer Sam Harris. Then, Yousef starts asking his own questions. He went to Sharia school. He memorized huge portions of the Quran. He speaks the classical Arabic. And one question stops the accusation cold. Watch the confidence drain out of that microphone. Let's get into it.
So you talk about being pulled by the currents of political ideology. I can agree with you. Right, that being pulled by the political ideology of Islamism is completely incorrect and immoral. But it seems as though you haven't really dived too deep below the waters, and it seems that you're being pulled by a different current and a different ideology. And I think the ideology that you're preaching here is in more than one way Islamophobic. And let me explain to you why I believe so. I will equally condemn Hamas right here on the spot, so we can all be clear in this room, right?
Thank you for that.
But what you are saying, right? And you talk about the treatment of blacks, you talk about the treatment of women, right? You talk about the only democracy in the Middle East. You talk about Arab inability to forge nations, to forge countries. You talk about the lack of existence of a Palestinian.
Don't only talk about it.
Listen to how that opens. He condemns Hamas on the spot. Good. Then he pivots straight into a list of everything Yousef has said. The treatment of black Africans. The treatment of women in the region. The only democracy in the Middle East. Arab states failing to build nations. He reads them out like an indictment. He does not refute a single one. A list is not an argument. It is just a longer accusation.
You talk about the lack of existence of a Palestinian identity, and with all due respect, I know you're Palestinian, or some would say that you are, so you have a right to, disavow yourself of that, but you do not have a right to tell other people that their identity does not exist. I believe that it is incorrect, it is immoral to say what identities do and do not exist, to dictate. That is almost the definition of being a bigot, right?
Now watch the move he makes. He tells a Palestinian man he may disavow his own identity. Then he calls that almost the definition of a bigot. Then he insists he is not name-calling. Bigot, Orientalist, Islamophobe, all in 90 seconds. Yousef interrupts once, calmly. Is your point just to accuse me? The answer is another closing point. Then comes Samuel Huntington, then a Sam Harris name drop, and still not one word about Gaza.
And I'm not trying to name call right now, I'm just trying to call it how I see it, right? And so if we can both agree that we're going to condemn Hamas, but also equally refrain from being Orientalist, refrain from being Islamophobic, then we can have a productive conversation. But I am sorry, sir, your rhetoric is inflammatory. You trade in fear. You trade in fear.
Now you're accusing me. You're accusing me.
Closing point.
It's your point to just accuse me.
Closing point. Okay. I'm calling it how I see it, so feel free to retort. But this is my last point. So Samuel Huntington has this idea of the clash of civilizations, right? And I saw you spoke to Sam Harris. Sam Harris subscribes to this idea as well. But you portray this idea of the Islam versus the West. Islam versus the West. And I think this is a very, very dangerous idea. If we're both talking about Islamists, right, we can kind of get on the same page. But you say Islamist, but in your rhetoric you describe the Islamic civilization generally, proper, right? So let's just make sure we're getting clear about that. But I think that is inflammatory, I think that you're trading in fear, and I think that is very, very harmful. And that's just what I wanted to say. Thank you.
The questioner reaches for Samuel Huntington. Then he reaches for Sam Harris. Then the phrase, Clash of Civilizations, as if a book title settles it. But look at what the charge has become. Not that Yousef is wrong about Sharia law. Not that he is wrong about what happened in Gaza. Only that saying it out loud is dangerous. That is not a rebuttal. That is a request for silence. And Yousef is about to answer it with the one credential nobody else in that room has.
Yeah, well, look, you can call somebody who's not familiar with the phenomena that they have a phobia of that. Like someone has phobia of something that is unknown to them. You can say that. You can say this about anybody who did not grow up in that region. But as someone who went to a Sharia school, someone who memorized huge portions of the Quran, someone who speaks the classic Arabic, someone who studied so many Islamic denominations, you cannot accuse them. Are you listening to my answer? You see, you're busy right now, right? Suddenly you're busy.
Listen, I heard exactly what you had to say, and I agree. Islamophobic.
But you want to debate me right now?
Maybe after. Maybe after.
You want to debate me? Then you need to listen to me until I finish.
Please.
Sit down, sit down. Sit down and listen. Okay.
And there is the answer to the whole accusation. You cannot have a phobia of the thing you were raised inside. He went to Sharia school. He memorized huge portions of the Quran. He studied the competing Islamic denominations. That is not a man reacting to something foreign. Now watch the questioner while Yousef is answering. He is chatting with the people beside him. He wanted 3 minutes of the floor. He cannot give 30 seconds back. Sit down and listen is not rudeness. It is the only way a debate works.
So I speak on experience, much longer experience than your experience combined. Not to reduce you, but have you been to a Sharia school?
No, but I lived.
You haven't. Have you studied the Sharia? Have you studied the Sharia, the 4 major books of legislation? Have you studied them?
Not fully in depth, but I understand Sharia. I've studied Sharia, yes.
So name the 4 main sources of Islam. Why you cannot do it? You said that you studied it.
When you have Sharia, you're talking about Sharia jurisprudence. You have.
I need the sources. There are 4 main sources of Islam all Muslims agree on. What are the 4 sources?
You have Sunnah, you have Hadith, right? You have Quran, right?
That's not it. That's not it. You forgot Qiyas and Ijma'.
That is the whole debate in 90 seconds. He asks one simple question. Name the 4 sources of Islamic jurisprudence. Every student of Sharia knows them. Quran, Sunnah, Ijma, Qiyas. The man who spent 3 minutes lecturing about Islam names 2. Then he stops. You do not need to be a scholar to criticize an ideology. But if you are going to call a man ignorant of his own religion, you should know the reading list.
So please sit down and listen. Please sit down and listen. I don't have phobia of Islam. I was born in Islam. You cannot tell a cub that they have a phobia of cats. Because this is their environment. You know, you tell somebody who never been to the situation Islamophobic. But I, as a son of the religion, I don't have a phobia. I have the right to rebel. I have the birthright to rebel. I tell you something. I don't mind speaking to him after the event if this is what he wants, okay? And I don't mind actually debating someone. But the thing is, when you accuse someone, you must support. You know, you accuse me of Islamophobia. This is a big accusation. How can be Islamophobic if this is my natural environment? You know, you cannot tell a fish that a fish is afraid of water.
You cannot tell a fish that it is afraid of water. That line lands because it exposes how lazy the accusation was. Islamophobia was aimed at a man born into Islam, schooled in it, fluent in its texts. The word was doing the work that an argument was supposed to do. And notice the offer he makes. Talk to me after the event. I will debate you properly. He is not running from the conversation. He is asking for one.
Well,
you know,
why don't you have the
nonsense.
last word?
Let me just respond very quickly. I don't believe that Islamophobia is a helpful word, right? I think bigotry towards Muslims may be a better one, right? But I'm just using the word that most people understand. When I say that, people know what I'm talking about, right? That's all I'm saying. But we can have this conversation. I want to dwell over this.
Watch the retreat. Islamophobia is suddenly not a helpful word. Now it is bigotry towards Muslims. Now it is just the word most people understand. Then it is let us not dwell on semantics. He built his whole intervention on that word. Minutes later, he calls it imprecise. And the event moderator has to step in and say out loud that Yousef is not a bigot. That is what a collapsed accusation sounds like.
Semantics right now, but we could have this conversation more in depth.
Okay, but also you need to understand.
Thank you. And I think Mr. Yousef is saying he's not a bigot.
If it was a different function, okay, and I can talk Islam with you all day long, I have no fear, I have no problem of discussing religion, criticizing religion. It's our freedom in this country. You know, people criticize Christianity, criticize Judaism, they make fun of the gods. Why cannot I make the fun of the gods, you know, that I was brought up? But anyway, this is not the right place. Look, I don't want to be offensive. I don't want to be offensive to anybody, but thank you for bringing the topic. We were focusing on Gaza. You tell me that you're from Sudan. You're about like 2,000 miles away. Have you ever been to Palestine or to Israel? You never been there. So you shake your head when I said the black situation in the territories in denial. But you never been there.
When you talk about the region, you're not just talking about Palestine.
Okay. Look, man, I like to build bridges, but false accusations I don't like. And I don't like hypocrisy. I like free people who don't...
Strip it down, and this was one accusation meeting one question. The accusation was Islamophobia. The question was whether the accuser knew the subject. Only one of those survived the exchange. Yousef went to Sharia school and memorized the Quran, and he still gets told he fears his own religion by a man who cannot name the 4 sources of its law. That word has been doing this job for years. It ends debates instead of starting them. It gets aimed at the people best placed to speak. And when someone asks for evidence, it turns into a discussion about semantics. Do you think Yousef exposed how empty that label has become? Or did the questioner have a fair point? Drop your thoughts in the comments.